You are so kind to me, daughters. Now, let's take a look at him. Well, Ethan Winters. You escaped my little brother's idiot games, did you? Let's see how special you are.
It's like dream come true. I'm talking to the actual Lady D. I'm blushing. Thank you so much. And so I guess just to start off from the very beginning, how did you first come across the role of Lady Dimitrescu?
LOL. So I had just moved to LA in 2019.
Wow.
And I had just done my graduate program in classical acting, and then I had moved to LA, and I booked this job a couple of months after I moved to LA. Wow. It was, I think, the third project I booked when I moved here. So in no time at all, I booked the job of a lifetime, except I didn't know it at the time.
Wow.
Because the breakdown was fake. Everything about what I knew about it was fake. So I had no idea what I was auditioning for. I was unrepresented and just flying by the seat of my pants. And I mostly auditioned for it because, I was like, well, why not? I fit the breakdown. They were looking for tall women. And for once, that could be an asset to me. So often my height is the thing that can close the door and rule me out of getting a part. And so this was one of the first times I'd seen something that was looking for women 5'10" and over. And I was like, oh my gosh, hi, that's me. This is mine. So that's what initially made me even want to apply for the job. And then went through the audition process, went through the callback process, got to the table read, booked the job. And then I was like, oh my gosh, okay, cool, book this job. Got to the table read. And that's when I started to figure out that this was actually a big deal.
Right. So what did they actually, what did you know? Because you said there was a fake listing. Like what had they told you beforehand?
I don't even remember. I knew that it was going to be voiceover, and I'd never really done voiceover for a video game before. So I was like, okay, I might as well give it a shot. But yeah, and even the sides that I auditioned with were fake character names, fake sides, none of that was actual stuff from what made it into the game. So yeah, bananas. And I remember in the audition, what's cool about the performance capture auditions and mocap auditions is that they feel very similar to theater. And that's true for the medium itself. It is really this blend of theater and television and on camera, because you have this extremely technical component, but then you also have this kind of black box theater component where you have only yourself to tell the story. You only have your imagination to create the world around you. You have no set pieces, costumes, makeup to rely on to tell the story. You have no external trappings to tell the story for you. You only have yourself. So that felt very fun. And the audition process, so often with on camera, you are in this really tight frame and you have to be here in your frame, and there's not a lot of movement that can happen. It's really about reading the story from your face. And with theater, you have to read the story from your whole body. The audience has to be able to read what's happening from your whole body. And so the audition was me in a larger room with more space to move around. They encouraged me to move around and play with the space and come up with ideas. So that was all really fun. And for me, who was just auditioning, it felt very familiar. So I walked in feeling like, oh, this is great. I've just been training in all of this extensively for the past year at my graduate program. I know how to do this. This feels really good. So I was able to let loose and just have fun with it. And then to get the call that I booked the job, I was just like, oh my gosh, so fun.
Well, the Lady D confidence jumped out, it sounds like. I mean, she walks into a room and she owns it, right? Like, that's exactly it.
She does, yeah. Yeah, and I had just been working on Shakespeare, and I talked about this a little bit with Ed, but she's very Shakespearean. I think Village, the game as a whole, is very Shakespearean because it's extremely heightened. You have these heightened worlds that you're living in, and the stakes are extremely high. And then you have characters like Lady D who are very arch and dramatic and everything. everything means a lot. And,
that's why we love her.
So again, all of this is what just kind of piled on top and just made the whole experience feel both simultaneously completely different than anything I'd ever done before, but also really, really familiar. And I was able to draw a lot on the skills and resources that I had learned in all of my acting training thus far and put it into this role and this job. So that was cool.
And you'd never done video game stuff before, but had you considered it? Have you ever have you noticed as an actor if attitudes to video game work have changed over the last few years?
I think they definitely have changed. I had never really heard of it before, and so had never really considered it. But that's the beauty of moving to a place like Los Angeles. I think if I had chosen to move anywhere else, I wouldn't have had access to the same opportunities, because there's so many more jobs within this industry that you can have as an actor that you even realize when you're just going to school. When you go to school, you're like, I'm going to be on stage. I'm an actor, therefore I must be on the stage. And then you move to a place like Los Angeles and you realize, oh wait, I could do this and I could do that. And somebody does this for a job and I could do that too. And so I found it really exciting to be here and to have all of these new opportunities before me. I think it's really exciting. And I do think attitudes towards video games have changed. We're seeing a lot more interest. A lot of people, I feel like motion capture used to be, not a lot of actors really wanted to do it. And now we're seeing A-list on camera actors come and do video games. And I think that that also speaks to, as our technology has continued to improve, video games have continued to improve. The cinematics are stunning. It looks almost like you are watching a movie. I've watched some trailers, cinematic trailers, where I'm like, I don't know if this is a video game or if it's a live action movie. I can't tell, which is so exciting. And I think also video games have started to shift more into a narrative focus.
Yes.
So we're creating stories that are really interesting. So for actors, that's our bread and butter. We just want to tell cool stories. We want to be cool characters, really dynamic and cool characters. So I think as all of that has continued to evolve, we've seen a greater interest in this genre.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when did you first actually see Lady D for the first time?
You know, they showed me a image of her pretty early on, and that was so helpful for me to have that to go off of, to be like, oh, that's what she looked like. And I mean, forgive me, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I think I've said this before, but I won't shut up about it because it's just so cool. I watched the Star Wars Mandalorian behind the scenes documentary on Disney Plus, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's so, so cool. Also, they use video game technology. They are using video game engines and they're operating in a volume. It's so, so cool. Great. But they talk about, I think Bryce Dallas Howard brings up the point that all of George Lucas's characters have a silhouette, and you can see them from afar and already know who they are because their silhouette, their character, the image of their character already conveys such a sense of personality and character. And I think that they've done the same with Lady D. You look at her and already you have a sense of who this woman is. I think that's part of why she went so viral from the get-go, because you saw her and you were like smacked in the face with character. And so I felt that when I was first shown the image of her, I was like, great, I got it. Say no more. I have so many great ideas now. So yeah, I was shown her pretty early on, and then it was just so fun to play with her because it just gave me so much to work with and so many ideas. And
so what inspiration and ideas did you have? I mean, you mentioned Shakespeare a little bit. Like, I mean, she's just got a very, very dramatic flair to her, which we love so much.
We do. We love a dramatic girl. Yeah. Well, so she's got this kind of, she's very curvy and she's very sensual. She's got her elegance. The outfit that she's wearing is very elegant and period. She looked very period. So then from there, I knew that I was going to have to make her feel like from a different time, that she's trapped in the past in a way. Which is important to her because she's a vampire. She's lived forever and ever and ever. Well, she's not. Anyway, she's a very ancient being. So
semantics,
she does have that sense of age and from another time-ness about her. So that's what kind of landed me on this more transatlantic thing that felt a little bit more antiquated and also just a little, that has that kind of classy component to it, that was back in the golden age, and she felt like she was from the golden age. And then she has this big swoop. Oh, wow. Words are so difficult. I do them for my living and I can't speak. She has this big swooping brim of her hat. And so all of this, her curves, the swooping brim of her hat, that made me play with curves. And I wanted her to be very sensual. And so physically, when you're creating the physical movement profile for the character, I wanted her to feel in control. So I played with this idea of an internal versus external rhythm. Her external rhythm is very slow and winding. Nothing ever happens in a straight line because she has total control over her space and time moves around her. Time moves for her rather than her having to work hard to get where she needs to be. So you have that calm, collected, regal, elegant exterior. And then underneath that, her internal tempi, I wanted to be really aggressive and quick, more like a slash, that she's lashing out at everything, because she needed to have that sense of real potential for danger. She could, excuse my French, fuck you up. And you needed to think that, you needed to feel that you didn't know what she was going to do next. She was calm, but also, what the heck is going to happen? I'm in trouble. So those are the things that I played with. And the cigarette, oh my God, it's so fun. We love a prop. It just gives you something to do. It adds so much character and flair. And yeah, you can tell a lot about a woman from how she holds her cigarette.
I think everyone fell in love with her from that first turn, you know, in the camera, like that early trailer where she's turning, like that is all, everything that you've just said. Yeah.
That continues to be my favorite part of everything that I've seen about Lady D. I think that one turn fully encapsulates everything about her, where it's so elegant, but like, oh my God, you're terrifying.
Yeah, and it went viral in that moment because the danger and the seductiveness all work together. I mean, I'm sure Ed talked to you a little bit about how important she is for the LGBTQ plus community, but she's also, I think, super important as an older presenting woman who's also sexy, let's be honest, like so sexy. And it's just so cool.
Yes, 100%. It's been, 100%. I think that that's part of why she did take the world by storm, because she's so different from any other character that we've seen in video games, and gives and is translatable to so many different communities. There's so many different people that can see themselves in Lady D, because she is all of these things. She is an icon. She is someone who literally and figuratively does not fit in anywhere in her world, and yet remains staunchly unapologetic for who she is, and in fact demands that everyone else around her give her the respect that she deserves. She does not give an inch.
Iconic behavior.
Of who she is. It's iconic behavior. So there's a lot to admire about that. There's a lot that I admire about Lady D that I wish I had. Hey, give me some of that confidence, please. So she just owns who she is. And I think everyone can see a little bit of themselves in that and be inspired by that.
But talking about taking up space as well, is it true that there was 2 different mocap studios made for sizing? So one was built with her sort of eye lines and props in mind, and then there was one human-sized one as well?
That gets into technical components that me as a stupid actor don't know all the answers to. So you'll have to talk to Capcom about that. But I know that we did have to think about scale. And there were certain props that were, you know, I had the Maggie door, and then we had everyone else's door. Everyone else had a normal size door, and then the Maggie door was kind of halfway. So I literally did have to kind of birth myself through the door. And eye lines, for sure, that was an interesting thing, where usually when you're doing a scene with someone, you're being able to look them in the eye and exchange dialogue back and forth, just like we are now-ish, virtually. But because Lady D is so tall, we did have to think about eye lines. So I was often looking at people's like knees and crotch area is kind of where I would land. And then they would look at a point above my head. And so we'd be having conversations with each other, like the scene with Heisenberg. I'm looking at Neil's knees, and Neil is all the way up here, and we're like having a fight and going back and forth, and I'm just looking at his knees. So that was definitely something to get used to. And that's kind of that's where, even though it felt very familiar doing all this work, those are the moments where you're like, oh, this is different. This is completely different.
But even aside from that, with the eye lines and stuff, like, it must be so, like, you've touched on it a little bit before, but like, it must be so hard to get into that mocap space, because, like, you know, when you see that scene of all of the villains gathered together and it's all very, like, you know, intimidating and scary, but then you look at some of the behind the scenes videos and you're all covered in bright dots. It's like,
we're so derpy. Yeah. Yeah, but that's why it's so reliant on your imagination. And that's why theater backgrounds are so helpful in this work, because you just have to create the world. You have to be able to invest in the world. And if you don't physically believe it and feel it in your body, then audiences aren't going to believe it. I had a coach that one time told me, I think, the spine shows all, the spine reveals all. So if you aren't feeling it in your spine, then we can tell.
That's a good, I think posture is super important. That translates for sure. But was there a particular moment that you remember realizing that Lady D was going to be big in more ways than one? No, because I was so oblivious. And I think even Rosanna Sun, our amazing producer, towards the tail end, she started to be like, hey, Maggie, I think audiences are really going to like your character. And I was always like, okay, Rosanna, like, sure, that sounds great. That sounds really great. I'll believe it when I see it. Thank you. And then I think she blew up in January of 2021, and I had to send Rosanna an email that was just like, you were right. You told me so. You were right. What was it like watching all those memes unfold from the sidelines, being like, oh my gosh? Well, so strange, because I was still under NDA, so I couldn't even say anything, even to the people around me. So this huge, crazy thing is happening to me, and I can't tell my friends, I can't tell my family. And so I'm just sitting by the computer, like, freaking out. But that's why I was so grateful to be in touch with some of the people in the cast, because at least we could all talk to each other. So Nicole Tompkins and I were the ones, she's the one that told me she was freaking, that Nicole texted me to say that Lady D was blowing up on the internet. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went and checked it out. And sure enough, she was. Very strange to be an anonymous observer of all of that. And also really amusing to me, because I would find threads where people were trying to guess who the voice actress was. Right. And it was so amusing to hear all of the names of people that they thought it could be. And then, like, major names in the business they were throwing out there, which was very flattering. But then once my name was released, and then everyone was like, wait, who's Maggie Robertson? You're like, me, bitch. I find it really weirdly wholesome in a way, though, because, like, it happened, you know, where everyone was mid-lockdown, everyone was a bit, like, fatigued by the whole thing. And here comes this tall, gorgeous vampire lady into our lives. The memes were everywhere, and it was just really kind of nice to see everyone getting a laugh and, you know, sometimes a bit more out of this character. I don't know. It was a real highlight for me at the time. I totally agree. And I don't know if she would have blown up in quite the same way if we all hadn't been stuck at home in the midst of a pandemic. But she certainly seemed to give people what they needed at the time, whether that was a laugh or something more. But yeah, I just thought it was wonderful how much she was able to bring life and joy back into people's lives. So, did Capcom acknowledge after the fact that that huge? I mean, because they obviously knew they had something really special in their hands, but by that time, you know, they'd obviously known that the character was killed off, like, you know, kind of early in the game. Wow. Did they ever, like, sort of vocalize that sort of, darn it, we didn't realize what we had until it was too late? Oh, I don't know. I don't think they ever did, at least not to me. Not to me. They were always so, I think, rather than feeling like, oh, darn, we missed something, I think the general attitude was one of like, oh, wow, we've really found something. Yeah. So
that was really nice.
You also said when accepting the award for Best Performance for the Game Awards, which, by the way, was an amazing speech and you looked incredible, that the company took a chance on you and changed your life. What did the whole experience kind of taught you about the industry? And I guess, like, you're just getting started yourself, but what advice would you give to actors now yet to make it, especially in the midst of a pandemic?
My story is very weird. It's kind of, you don't hear it a lot. And so I think it's been very inspiring from what I can tell, not to put words in people's mouths, but I've had a lot of people reach out to say how inspiring my story has been. And it's still weird for me to even process it, because I think you move to Los Angeles and, you know, everyone talks about, oh, you can move to LA and be discovered on the street. Yeah. And you're like, cool, that's a 1%. That's the exception, not the rule, okay? When you arrive in LA, you have to work. You have to do the grind. You have to be ready to get in the mud and work hard for years and years and years in order to get even 1 inch of progress towards your goals. That's the reality. And so I came to LA, and I'm cynical. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to be me. I'm going to have to work really hard. And then it kind of was me. So that's very weird.
But you also worked really hard. So, you know, like.
I did work very hard. And the way that I describe it is the massive success that I achieved with Lady D is when luck happens, when preparation meets opportunity. I got very lucky with Lady D, but I got lucky because I was so incredibly prepared as an actor, as a person, and that preparation allowed me to take advantage of the opportunity I was given with this role and make it a really lucky success.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I think about it, because you're right, I should not devalue the work that I put in leading up to it. But it is crazy to think about how quickly it was able to happen and to crystallize for me once I moved here. I think, and to that end, it is kind of bananas, where I think my advice is just to keep going, because you literally never know when your breakout role is going to arrive. Your next audition could be your breakout role. You never know. I didn't know. So it's a weird thing of, I don't want people, you know, you feel like maybe you're clinging to false hope, but also it could also not be false hope. It could be real hope. You could be just around the corner from your next big thing. And I think the biggest thing to remember is that this career in general is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's so hard, and you are going to have ups and downs. And so I think that the key to longevity in the industry is about finding value outside of the industry.
Right.
So build your life. Don't just be an actor. Go out there and live your life and have new experiences, have things that fill you up that are not about this career.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that will help you last for longer. So, yeah.
What was your favorite thing about the whole experience?
I really loved all the people that I worked with. I think that was a pleasant surprise, because you don't always get along with your cast and your coworkers instantaneously the way that I seemed to do here with Resident Evil. The first day I showed up, you know, I'm so nervous, just wondering whether or not I'll be able to do a good job in this completely new field. And everyone was so welcoming to me and just really took me under their wing of like, oh, you've never done this before. Great. Here's how performance capture works. Here's this thing over here. Here's that over there. And I'm still in touch with a lot of the cast members, my fellow cast members. I think that that's been really special. Our director, Steve Kniebley, I'm still in touch with, and Rosanna. And all of these are people that I want to work with again, because they're just good people. So I'm excited to have them in my life and to know them. And yeah.
I grew up obsessed with the heroes of the female protagonists of Resident Evil. You know, Jill Valentine is my hero.
Yes.
I wouldn't exactly call it a feminist series. Oh, maybe it is, but that representation mattered, and it still matters. But do you think now that we have, I guess female heroes are more normalized, we're going to see more female villains? Because I think that's the next goal, really, is to.
I hope so.
Right?
That'd be so fun. Yeah, I hope so. I hope that we will continue to see a diversification of the types of characters, the people who are playing these characters, the stories that we're telling. I think Lady D speaks to that as well, as she's, not the end all be all of diversity in media, but what she does show is that there is a real hunger and thirst for different narratives that we've not seen before and different characters that we've not seen before. So the audience is there, man. We want it. We crave it. Give us more. Keep going. We don't just want to see the same types of characters over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. It's so important. And Village in particular has so many women in it.
Yeah.
So many female characters. I didn't even really process that at the time that we were filming. And it was only after the game came out that we were all like, oh, wait. Oh, this is cool. Hey, this is really cool. Yeah.
Do you think we'll see Lady D again someday?
No clue, but I hope so. I would love to play her. So,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take up any more of your, I was about to say evening, but it's actually your morning now.
I know, my day is just starting.
Mine is just ending. I'm going to go play a Nintendo Switch now. But thank you so much for chatting to us again. And yeah, thank you for bringing us such an amazing character. We love her to death, I would say.
Good.
Awesome.
She'll kill you if you don't love her. She'll kill you to death.
We might be okay with that. You never know.
No, that's fine.
Cheers, Maggie. Thank you so much.
Oh, be careful what you wish for, Ethan Winters.
Wait, what are you doing?